Good thing this stuff's all modular and easily replaceable. Sometimes it pays to do things on the cheap. What happened in here? Is this why I couldn't shoot my Hell in a Cell preview? We may have had a little no-holds-barred match with an evil witch who wanted our resident magical creature. Wish I'd been around to see that. Probably would have been more entertaining than the last TNA Impact pay-per-view. Speaking of which, are we gonna have to worry about Militia coming back anytime? Well, Jeannie found and removed the tracking spell on my chucks. Then she sent Militia's staff to a cave somewhere in Mount Fuji. So, unless Militia's able to bum a ride from Hoboken to Japan and is willing to enter a volcano without any magical powers, I don't think we're gonna hear from her for a while. And believe me, that's well and good enough for me. You mean you're getting too old for this? Something like that. You guys are the crime-fighting heroes. I'm just a dork who reviews bad TV shows on the internet. That's well and good enough for me. Although I will say, after enduring everything Militia threw at us, I don't know why I don't try and do something more controversial on this show. I mean, I've been scared ever since all the flames I got from Veronica Mars, but, you know, after everything an evil witch could give us, what's the worst internet flamers can do? What did you have in mind? TV trash, and oh looky, we get another TV reboot, and this one's of a movie that's perfectly themed for this week. Teen Wolf was originally a 1985 comedy film about an unpopular teenager named Scott Howard becoming a werewolf and how it completely changes his life. It was a pretty big sleeper hit with a $33 million domestic gross after having been made on just a $1 million budget. Michael J. Fox actually worked on this film and Back to the Future at the same time, getting what little sleep he had time for in his car in between filmings, and the result was him being part of the 2 highest grossing films in Teen Wolf's opening weekend. It's not a great movie by any stretch, but it did spawn an animated series in 1986 that had some noticeable continuity differences, and a 1987 sequel starring Justin Bateman that was a traditional plot rehash. And yet I'll take those follow-ups over what MTV now decided to do with the concept. The network that once played music videos decided to create a new live-action series, but this one would be with a greater emphasis on romance, horror, and werewolf mythology. In other words, some people in Hollywood who saw the film as kids now want to twilight it up to pander to today's youth. Yippee skippy! And if you think I'm kidding about that, the show debuted as #1 in its time slot among women 12 to 34. It was nominated for 16 Choice Awards, if you consider that to be of any merit. So, just what does my over 29-year-old persona think of it? Let's find out. So as the episode opens with the local sheriff's department hunting down, I don't know, the Blair Witch or something, we then cut to Scott Howard, I'm sorry, it's now Scott McCall, getting ready for the basketball season, or the lacrosse season, when...
Oh! Styles, what the hell are you doing?
Yep, it's Scott's best friend Styles, and if you thought he was annoying in the movie, don't worry, he's much more annoying in this show.
2 joggers found a body in the woods. A dead body? No, a body of water. Yes, dumbass, a dead body. They only found half. Seriously doing this? You're the one always bitching that nothing ever happens in this town. I was trying to get a good night's sleep before practice tomorrow. Right, because sitting on the bench is such a grueling effort. No, because I'm playing this year. In fact, I'm making first line. Hey, that's the spirit. Everyone should have a dream, even a pathetically unrealistic one. Just out of curiosity, which half of the body are we looking for? Huh. I didn't even think about that. And, what if whoever killed the body is still out here? Also something I didn't think about.
So, you're an a-hole and you're stupid.
Dad, how are you doing?
So, do you, listen to all of my phone calls?
No. I'm not the boring ones.
Well, young man, I'm gonna walk you back to your car, and then you and I are gonna have a conversation about something called invasion of privacy.
So after nearly getting trampled by CGI deer that make the animals from Jumanji look real, things get worse for Scott. I'm gonna wait for the inevitable to happen before I go on the rant you all know is coming. As Scott makes it to school the next day, I can't help but notice certain names in the credits. This pilot was developed by Jeff Davis and based off a screenplay by the original movie's writers Matthew Wiseman and Jeff Loeb, which tells me that Davis basically took a hacksaw to the original writer's concept. Oh, and the director is Russell Mulcahy, the director of the first two Highlander films.
Mom, 3 calls on my first day is a little overdoing it.
So while Scott starts realizing that he now has supersonic hearing, we're introduced to the show's love interest, Allison.
Thanks.
Meanwhile, it appears Beacon Hill has no football team if the girls go gaga for lacrosse players.
You're in goal.
I've never played.
I know. Scoring some shots will give the boys a confidence boost.
I'm really wondering why the writers changed Scott's sport from basketball to lacrosse. Was it to educate today's kids on this exciting but lesser-known sport? Or was it because they needed a sport that's still primarily played by white kids? You make the call! At any rate, Scott has now become the world's greatest lacrosse player, blocking everything that comes at him while in goal, and yet surprisingly the coach still gives him a shot as a position player. Yeah, he's great there as well, but speaking as a sports guy, why would he pass up a chance to have the best goalie in the district? Isn't defense what ultimately wins? Oh, and this means he's now hated even more by the former star player Jackson, who suspects he's gotten roided up or something. Yeah, this team chemistry works great for winning. I can tell you the biggest what the hell in this whole series. That being that in the original movie, Scott didn't become a werewolf from a bite, it was hereditary. He came from a family of wolves. This was just the biggest thing they threw out to the wind in making this series. They basically took the first name of the main character from the movie, the full name of the best friend, and then changed everything else.
You're cursed, Scott. You know what? Who were they?
Hunters. Kind of been hunting us for centuries.
Us? You mean you? You did this to me!
Is it really so bad, Scott?
Even style Miles' personality is the exact opposite. In the film and the cartoon, he was always looking for a way to profit off of Scott's secret. While here, he quickly becomes this total scaredy cat who worries that Scott's gonna become some killing monster that Simon Belmont will have to hunt down.
You have no idea who I am. I'm a friend of your daughter's. Look, this is gonna sound kind of crazy. Really crazy, actually. You know what? Crazy doesn't even describe...
It's for you.
Now that doesn't necessarily mean that the show's story is completely bad. It's pretty clear that the producers had their own concept to run with. The issue is that they had no reason then to make it an adaptation. The audience they're aiming for isn't going to care if the show is titled Teen Wolf or not, but by slapping that title on there, the only thing it does is draw in those who saw the original and then likely get hacked off at what you've done with it.
You've been given something that most people would kill for. The bite is a gift.
I don't want it.
You will.
Scott discovers another werewolf named Derek, who ultimately tells Scott he was bitten by an alpha wolf that is out preying on innocents, and ultimately he's trying to build up his own pack to fight against the alpha. So we have one group of good supernatural monsters fighting against a group of evil ones. Sound familiar?
My dad ID'd the dead girl. Both halves. Her name was Laura Hale. Hale? Derek's sister.
Okay, there's some difference. In this case, Scott has to eventually break up with Allison because he's the one who's in danger from this relationship. Why? Because Allison's family is among the people out to hunt down the werewolves. And they're clearly supposed to be people who are dead set in their ways that all werewolves are evil and must be hunted down to make them just as much the villains as the alpha wolf and people Scott can't go to for help, even though they're essentially on the same side.
My uncle. 6 years ago, my sister and I were at school. Our house caught fire. 11 people were trapped inside. He was the only survivor.
So, what makes you so sure that they set the fire?
Because they're the only ones that knew about us.
It's almost like it's meant to be a metaphor for minority races and their struggles by giving us this example of, not all of us are bad, we're just different versions of you who want to fit in, while using the Van Helsing wannabes of this show to be the racists persecuting all members of this race without taking individuals into account. And if that's the case, it doesn't completely work because these creatures were not born into their current state. That's why the premise of the original movie would have worked better for this if that theme was what they were going for. Heck, Buffy did a better job of this by having the few monsters who wanted to fight for good team up with the hunter early on. But no, they have to put this kid in a state of how everyone else is against him, and the only ones who can help him are the few just like him, because being alone and persecuted against is what's topical.
They say they'll only kill an adult, and only with absolute proof. But there were people in my family that were perfectly ordinary in that fire. This is what they do.
Okay, to be fair, it's made pretty clear to the audience by the 4th episode that Allison's father lives by a set of moral standards that his group has, that he's only out to hunt evil werewolves without hurting anyone else, and her aunt is the one who went rogue and set the fire that killed Derek's family.
Yes, your sister was severed into pieces and used as bait to try to catch you. Unpleasant, and frankly, a little too Texas Chainsaw Massacre for my taste, but quite true. Now, here's the part that might really kick you in your balls. We didn't kill her.
Okay, just so we're clear, she didn't kill his sister, but she did supposedly kill the rest of his family. Did you really need a story that requires this much thought? Your target audience idolizes this character! I know one way this series can end well. Put the ant and the alpha in a cage together and just let them fight it out together. Alpha wolf versus alpha bitch, live on pay-per-view! Okay, for all my griping, I will admit the storyline gets quite compelling as the season progresses. Derek says only the Alpha can cure Scott of his curse, while they finally discover that Derek's uncle, the lone survivor of the fire, is actually the Alpha, and all his victims have been connected to that fire. Meanwhile, the Aunt Kate reveals the family secret to Allison, who is a more compelling character than most females because she actively wants to be someone who can protect herself and not always be some damsel in distress. Meanwhile, Jackson gets attacked by Derek and discovers Scott's secret, while Kate suspects that Jackson, not Scott, may be the second beta wolf that they're hunting. And this is why I have to admit, I really battled with whether or not I should spoil the climax to the first season, because it is really something worth watching. Until the very end of said climax, which I just have to talk about. So I'm gonna compromise and warn you to skip ahead if you don't want it spoiled while I do what I do. You have been warned. Okay, Allison, her father, and Kate find out Scott's secret, while the father finds out Kate was the one who set the fire, forcing them all to confront the Alpha together. The Alpha kills Kate because we can't have her actually going to prison for her crimes, leading to an ultimate confrontation where Styles, Allison, and Jackson all help Scott stop the Alpha with Wolf's Bane or something. But he's still barely alive, leading to this.
You said the cure comes from the one who bit you. If you do this, I'm dead. Her father, her family? What am I supposed to do?
You've already decided. I can smell it on you. Wait, no, don't!
Yep, Derek flat out kills the Alpha against Scott's wishes and ruins Scott's life forever just to prove he's a dick. Yes, they clearly need Scott to stay a wolf because they have a second season to get to, but why not have the Alpha kill himself in the end? Because this leaves Derek, in my view, as having crossed the moral line as a supporting protagonist. I'm not covering the second season because it's not out on DVD as of this posting, but given that Scott and Derek now have to be at odds, Allison's family is now upset that Kate is blamed for the Alpha's killing in addition to her own crime, and that Jackson appears to willingly let Derek turn him into a wolf. We're in for more grief and angst for the second year anyway. Teen Wolf. MTV, why didn't you just cut a deal with Stephanie Meyer, make Jacob the main character, and get it over with? Because I know that's what you wanted to do. If this had been made with a different title, with every single character being different, it would be just another attempt at taking advantage of the goth, supernatural, vampire, werewolf craze, and would be something I wouldn't give a second thought to. But the fact that they did decide to transform a 1980s comedy into some dark, edgy teen drama just irks me because it comes off as people in Hollywood today saying, that old version was stupid, here's how it should have been done. It also gets points off for me with a really dark atmosphere without the levity that Buffy and other shows had. And a number of characters come off as douchebags besides just the villains we're clearly supposed to hate. It's still not a terrible show, and I can see how it would generate an audience, but it goes right alongside Bionic Woman as someone's attempt to make a lighthearted cult favorite into something more with it today, and in the process makes the new creators look unimaginative. But hey, enjoy your Halloween, everybody. And get ready, because in the next few weeks, TV Trash is going to dare to take on even more shows that inexplicably have a fan base. And next week, we're gonna totally whoop it up.